Happy weekend, everyone, here in the Carolinas, and it is muggy out there, but I do have some good news for you guys. It's still early this summer, and we do still have some fresh, cool shots coming our direction. I'm Carolina Weather Authority meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg, and I'm excited to be part of our team here. I've known Mike Griffith for a while, great guy. We go back a ways, and excited to be helping out and doing a lot more forecasting here with you guys. And I know hurricane season is going to keep us on our toes, so we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm currently in Garner, North Carolina. I've been here for a few years, been in the Triangle since 2011. Grew up in Louisiana and went to school up at Penn State, so I've been up and down the East Coast. And excited to be part of the team here. And I love it in the Carolinas, and we've had a lot of interesting weather since I've been here. But I did move to Raleigh after that April 16th tornado outbreak. I know it was crazy, and I kind of wish I was here for it, but we don't need that anytime soon. Let's just put it that way. So we got 3 stories to talk about with you guys. I'm going to start real quick with Cristobal. We'll talk about, yeah, and that's kind of cool. It sounds like Cristobal, but it's Cristobal. Working on my Espanol. We'll talk about that, which is going to be an impact this weekend up in Louisiana and points east. Then we're going to talk about this somewhat cooler weather. We've talked about it being kind of a warm and wet summer, but there are some kinks in the pattern that are going to allow some cool air to come back our way. And, you know, our story about the busy Atlantic hurricane season, I really don't think it's clickbait or hype. We are really expecting something this year as far as one of our maybe top 5 storm seasons. And I hope that the storm tracks we've had so far go away and stuff ends up not affecting us, but I'm not going to promise that. We've got 6 months of this to go, so keep it tuned here because we're going to be on top of it for you guys. So let's go ahead and look real quick at the current weather across the Carolinas, and the radar is pretty quiet in most of the east. Some severe weather moving through southern New England, the Boston area. A lot of weather up in the plains expected tonight, and circulation out west here in the Rockies. We do have some weather in the eastern Carolinas and far southern South Carolina. You know, kind of a weak boundary dropping through. There's kind of a boundary here and another boundary here. So I'll talk about those. And then Cristobal, and the radar doesn't go out here, but the circulation's all the way down here. And you can see a large area of rain affecting Florida today. Just not a good weekend in Florida, unfortunately. And pretty soon in Louisiana as well. Current conditions in North Carolina and South Carolina, upper 80s, maybe a few 90s popping in here. The red number is the temperature, and the green number is the dew point, and this is the wind direction, so you can see some westerly winds. There is a boundary where the winds go behind it to the north, but it's still 90 in Richmond. And then here's that second fresh boundary where dew points have dropped into the 40s and 50s. Send that here, please. I love it. So give it a day and we'll get there. Local radar in North Carolina. This is the Raleigh radar, and aside from a stray shower near Lexington, things are pretty quiet. There are a couple showers over in upstate of South Carolina. Most of what we see is affecting, and you probably saw our post this morning, it's affecting eastern North Carolina. A few lightning strikes as well. Beaches down here are okay for now, but when you get up to Emerald Isle and points north, you have to be watching out for some of these briefly stronger storms. And then in South Carolina, I'll show you as well. Switch my radar scope here. Not a whole lot, so definitely quieter than it's been. But on our Columbia radar, we can see some action affecting the Charleston area and moving offshore there, and then some more showers and storms back across Georgia. Most of y'all are in North Carolina, but I love South Carolina. I don't know why. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our Storm Prediction Center forecast. And I was looking at this earlier. Just a general area for us through tonight, through 8 a.m. All the severe weather is expected to be up in the upper plains and Rockies, across western Florida and across New England. And tomorrow, a lot quieter day in the east, with our big storm up here. This is going to be what's driving Cristobal inland. This storm is going to take Cristobal and drive it northward. Could see severe weather tomorrow afternoon and night in New Orleans and in the central Gulf states. Here's Monday. Not too bad. Actually, a little more dry air comes our way. Maybe a few stray showers over the western Carolinas, but not much. Could be a few thunderstorms too, but I think that's the exception to the rule. The biggest threat for severe weather is up here across the upper Midwest. And you'll notice some quiet weather to start next week, so that's good. We need it. But this storm will be what we have to keep an eye on later in the week. Let's take a look here at Cristobal. And it's a big storm, but it is not, it's heavily weighted on the eastern side, not so much the west. The reason for that is that we have a lot of dry air and some southwest wind shear that's kind of tearing these intense storms away from the circulation center and pushing them well off to the north and east. And that's a good sign if you live in Louisiana, because you don't want to see a storm where thunderstorms are firing right on top of a central dense overcast. So we're not expecting this to become a hurricane. In fact, it only has 24 hours before it's going to be affecting land, or moving onshore, I should say. So it doesn't have a lot of time to organize. And while the Gulf is warm, it's not super warm like we would see later in the season. So that is some good news. The bad news, though, is we've got a pretty big circulation on the right side and just a ton of moisture streaking out of the Caribbean and over Cuba and all the way into Florida. So will be some very heavy amounts of rain that we're going to have to deal with here in the next 5 days. Winds tonight overnight do start to pick up 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts over the central Gulf, maybe even affecting New Orleans and the lakefront, but quiet inland, so that's good. Tropical storm force winds are likely in the red here, coming up through the Atchafalaya Bay tomorrow night, and maybe affecting New Orleans, Baton Rouge, those areas, and then the threat does decrease the farther north and east you get. We are going to take a look at storm surge as well, and I grew up in Louisiana. I can tell you this particular area is vulnerable even to, low to mid-range tropical storms. You can still have storm surge because of the way that the coast is shaped, and unfortunately it's shrinking, and the way that the water piles up and moves up the mouth of the Mississippi, moves through Lake Borgne and up into Pontchartrain and Maurepas. But with the size of the storm, you've got all these waterways and bays also that could have some storm surge, including Tampa Bay, all the way down to Marco Island, Naples area. So a pretty big storm. Storm track is looking pretty definite that Louisiana gets hit. We saw models earlier trying to get Texas. That's not going to happen. Not going to curve northeast, so we're good here in the Carolinas. We could see this storm merging with a front by Wednesday and a lot of heavy rain, severe weather up in the upper Midwest. But this is pretty good news for us, and that high pressure is just going to settle into the northeast here early next week. And that's going to force Cristobal to move farther west, find the weakness in the ridge, and get picked up by the trough that's moving through the north-central United States. We'll also take a quick look at rainfall. And flooding is a concern. This area here actually has been pretty dry for the last few months, so a little rain's not going to hurt. Florida's been a bit dry as well, but not recently, because we've had Bertha, we had Arthur, and now we've got Cristobal. So Florida's definitely made up the deficit. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, it's been pretty wet the last month. I've had relatives deal with flash floods. Talk about one night we had a 15-inch storm hit right where Tangipahoa Parish meets St. Tammany. If you're familiar, that's on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain, and we had some floods, and my father's house fell victim to that, and his car. So even an unnamed storm can dump flooding, and that's something I'm concerned about with this coming on top of all that heavy rain. We're going to take a look real quick at the tropics. June, the hot spots are in here, so we're not out of the woods the rest of June. Development, typically occurs in the Caribbean or Southern Gulf or on the Pacific side, but every now and then we get something coming up the East Coast or something coming up in the Gulf and tracking northeast. But typically our busier spots are July and on into August, September, early October. Rainfall for us over the next week. Drier as a whole, but I am going to show you a little bit here. We do have the threat for maybe some briefly heavy rain with the next couple of storms. And again, that rainfall map. Take a look at the GFS, and this is a wide view of the Atlantic. And here's Cristobal moving in tomorrow night. We have a big high pressure system from central Canada pushing all the way down, and that's going to push drier air in. So it's not looking too unsettled for us, but this front kind of does hang up on a Monday night, Tuesday. So if you're along the front, you could still have some action tomorrow night, even into Tuesday. But this high is going to push everything off to our west, so that's the good news for us. This front here is going to pick up Cristobal We also have maybe low pressure forming near Bermuda. That's something to keep an eye on. Don't think it'll be tropical. But this next front could slow down and kind of stall out a little bit on Thursday, so we may have some wet weather to deal with. The next one, though, I think is going to be more significant over next weekend. And you will notice as well a massive high-pressure system. So no heat wave in the future, which is awesome. Tropics aren't completely quiet, but not a lot likely to develop. But I have seen on the GFS model here maybe a dolly storm. We may get a second June storm in a couple weeks. This big high that comes in, though, is going to keep everything away. It may trap it actually to the south, so Bermuda might have some issues. But we don't see any real form of major tropical moisture heading our way for the next couple of weeks. We definitely have to watch this front if it slows down a bit. Could be a little severe weather from it, but I'm not expecting this to be a repeat of a few weeks ago where we just had a big stalled out cutoff low over here. So things are moving, which is great. And I do think our cool weather does give way to some warmer temperatures later this month, so we should end up close to average. It's going to be a warm and wet summer, but June is still kind of back and forth. So something we're going to have we'll be pulling some hairs out, I think, in the forecast department. Finally, I think that's pretty much it, but we're welcome to any suggestions. Here's the European as well, and shows, maybe something to keep an eye on next weekend and beyond. And pressures are higher than average in the northern Atlantic, so, we'll have a couple fronts to deal with. But if this high were down here, I'd be more worried about stuff forming down here, but it's not. So I don't think we're going to be watching too much here in the next couple of weeks, which is good. But we're welcome to suggestions here. This is my first video. I know it ran a little bit long. I've got a 15-minute limit, by the way. We're going to be dealing with YouTube. Subscribers are going to be getting a lot more videos, especially when we get into the meat of tropical season and severe weather and winter storm season. But I'm excited to work with you guys here. It's something I've really looked forward to doing, is getting more videos out there and building my reach. And just keeping family, friends, people I don't even know protected from what can be some crazy weather here in the Carolinas. So I'll be signing off from Garner. Everybody have a great rest of your Saturday, and we will see you soon.